Aloha everyone, my name is Charity and I will be helping you guys solve problems 13 through 15 in this week's quiz access chapters 1 and 12. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with number 13. On December 1st, Jasmine Ernst organized Ernst Consulting on December 3rd. The owner contributed $85,360 in assets in exchange for its common stock to launch the business. On December 31st, the company's records show the following items and amounts. Using the above information, prepare a December income statement for the business. Income statements are probably one of my favorite statements to create just because they're probably one of the easiest. But one tip that I highly recommend when doing these quiz accesses is if you need to, definitely reference the ebook link here. So if you get stuck or if you can't remember some of the readings, click on the ebook link to the side and it'll bring up the exact chapter that covers what we are doing in this quiz. So if you click on the link here, it'll take you right to that chapter in the reading and it'll show you how to create an income statement, how to do retained earnings, what's needed, titles, and things to look for. So this is a great tool and resource that you can use during the quiz access if you need help remembering the readings and what you read. But let's get back to number 13. So for income statements, we know that income statements, let's start with the date. We know that for income statements, based on the readings, is that it is for a period of time. It's not a specific date. So we're going to do for the month ended in December 31st. And the great thing about income statements is all you have to remember for incomes is that you need to remember revenues minus expenses. Okay, so revenues always goes on the top. So let's start here and click revenue. We're going to scroll back up to our information and look for any revenues that we have. Finding revenues in the information provided is so easy because all you have to do is look for the one that literally says revenue, which according to our information, we only have one, which is here, and it's consulting revenue for $18,350. So we're going to come back here, look for consulting revenue and put the amount and press enter. We only have one revenue, which is great, so we don't have to add anything else. After revenues, we do expenses. So we come back here, we title the report under expenses. And same thing for expenses. When you look at the information provided, you put everything in here that includes the word expense. So here with the information provided, we have 4 expenses: rent, salaries, telephone, and miscellaneous. So let's go ahead and put all of that information in the table below. So we have rent, salaries, telephone, and one more, I think it's miscellaneous. Here we go. And then we just come back to the table above and make sure we put the corresponding amounts. So rent is $4,820. Salaries is $8,370. And telephone expense is $910. And our miscellaneous is set for $720. Okay, again, refer back to the information. According to the information provided, that is all the expenses that we need, which means we've completed all the information. We see here that it automatically computes the total expenses. However, we do need to discover the net income. So at the very bottom, we're going to scroll down. This is going to be a net income because when we subtract total revenues from expenses, we have a positive amount. If our expenses exceeded our revenue, then we would have a net income loss. But thankfully, we are going to make a net income of $3,530. So we're just going to input that here. And that is how you do an income statement for number 13. Moving on to number 14, we have the same information provided, except this time we need to prepare a statement of retained earnings. Again, if you need to, please refer to the ebook link here. That'll take you to the chapter in the reading. So here we see an example of statement of returned earnings. So we know that return earnings is for a period of time. So it's for the month, which is the period. So we're going to go back to our problem here. And under statement of retained earnings, we are going to click for month ended December 31st because we know that it's for a period of time. It says here that there is no retained earnings, so we don't need to worry about that. In the retained earnings table, we are looking for our net income, which is what we just solved for in our net income in our income statement, and we subtract dividends to get our retained earnings for the end of the period. So here we're going to do our net income, which we solved for 3530. And then we are going to subtract the dividends. So we just scroll up and look for the dividends here with the information provided, which is 3,390. Perfect. And then it automatically computes the answer for us. It's a positive number, which means that this is a profit, which means that we can mark retained earnings as a profit. And again, we're going to use December 31st because we are doing retained earnings for the end of the period. All right. Feel free to use the check my work if you need to help with confirming that everything is correct. But based on this, everything looks good. And we can go ahead and move over to number 15, which is the last problem. Again, same information provided, except this time we're going to prepare a balance sheet based off of the information provided. Balance sheets can be a little bit trickier because now we have three things that we are including. We are including assets, liabilities, and equity. For balance sheet specifically, it makes it a lot easier if you can remember what are assets, what are liabilities, and what are equities. If you can determine all of those things beforehand, it'll make creating your balance sheet a whole lot easier. Again, reference your textbook if you need to. So here, based on the example, balance sheets are for a set date. Okay, so we'll go back to our problem. For our balance sheet, it's asking us to provide information for December 31st balance sheet. So we're going to go ahead and put the date for December 31st. And we're going to go ahead and start with our assets. Our assets is going to be on the left-hand side of the balance sheet. Assets, the cool thing about assets is they're usually always at the very top of the information provided. Assets will include, for this table, we have cash, accounts receivable, office supplies, land, and office equipment. So all of these five things from here and up are considered assets. So we're going to go ahead and include that here in the table. Our cash amount is $7,010. We then have our accounts receivable, which is $18,350. Next is our office supplies, which is $4,480. Land, which is $46,040. And then last but not least, our office equipment, which comes out to $19,360. Okay, and that's everything for our assets. The next information that we input on the balance sheet will be liabilities. Liabilities is super easy to find with the information provided because if it's a liability, it'll say the word payable. That's how you know it's a liability. So according to the information provided, we only have one term that includes the word payable, which is our accounts payable. So we're going to go ahead and include that under our liabilities, and it is for $9,740 here. And again, just double check your information. That's the only account that says payable, which means that's our only liability, which means we can now move forward to the last part of the balance sheet, which is our equity. So you're going to scroll down, click equity here. Equity can be a little trickier, but all you have to do is remember that equity always includes common stock and retained earnings. So again, scroll back to your information provided. We see common stock here is for $85,360. $85,360. And then it also includes our retained earnings, which we just solved for in our last statement, our statement of retained earnings. So based on the equation that we solved for our statement of retained earnings, our total retained earnings is 140. And again, here you see it automatically computes the information. 85,500. This is actually including the total for assets and liabilities. Or I'm sorry, this is the total for equity here. This information at the bottom, 95,240, this computes total liabilities and equity. So it adds total liabilities and equity. So we're just going to label that here at the bottom. And then here on the other side under assets, we see the same amount, 95,240. This is the total for assets. One way to make sure that you did your balance sheet correctly is that your total assets should equal the same amount as your total liabilities and equity. If you have the same amount, that most likely means that you did the problem correctly. But that's it. I hope this was super helpful. Feel free to comment below if you have any questions. And I wish you guys luck with this week's homework. Thank you guys.